2 years ago, we spoke with travel vlogger Kix Marshall. The Alberta man was going to travel across Canada by motorbike, collecting stories and recipes from Canadian families for his YouTube channel and a cookbook. Kix wasn't looking for high-end restaurant dishes, but rather the culinary traditions of each province. He's just released 2 videos on his YouTube channel about Quebec, and the cookbook is coming out in a few months. One of the videos about Quebec explores the agricultural heritage of 𝗔𝗯ance, and the other one is about our love of maple syrup in all of our cooking and baking. I spoke with Kix this week from his home in Spring Lake, just outside of Edmonton. Hi, Kix. Welcome back to All in a Weekend.
So, Nolly, how you doing? Thanks for having me back. I can't believe it's been like 2 years since we chatted last. Just about.
Now, I said motorbike, but am I like zhuzhing up what you were actually driving around on?
Are you zhuzhing up? Yeah, you totally are. Because if I say motorbike to people, they're like, oh, how nice. You have a nice motorbike to cruise around on with a sofa seat, and it's really extravagant. But it was a Honda 250cc, which if anyone knows what that is, it's more like a dirt bike. It's a very small motorbike. And for a chunk of that, I also had my wife on the back seat, which when I tell that story, people are like, wait a minute, you had 2 people on this 250cc plus filming gear, plus camping gear, plus cooking gear. So yes, it was more like a dirt bike.
Wow. So you went across the country. There's videos up on your channel. Like you went to a 𝗔𝗯cie kitchen. It looks like you went everywhere. But so how would you, after traveling through Quebec, how would you describe the food culture in the province?
Quebec definitely has its own culture for many, many, many things. But I would say food is top of the list for sure. They have very unique traditions, obviously. Maple syrup is huge, which I think is not as noticeable inside of the province as it is outside, because once you're outside of the province and you look into the province, you're like, oh my God, these people are crazy for the maple syrup. But other things like the Tortier, which is highly controversial from one location to the next, which I learned about on this program, actually, which kickstarted my hunt and seek for the Tortier 𝗔𝗯ance. Yeah, it was controversial. It was, to me, you say the word tortilla, it's a tortilla. I don't know the difference. I'm like, I know the difference now. But at the time, I would just think meat inside of a pie. You add ketchup, it's delicious. But I didn't know there was very different cultural ways of making it, as well as different styles, as well as different regions where you find it. And if you mentioned to one person you had the other, they were like, that's not really a tortilla.
So you ended up going to 𝗔𝗯ance. What did you find there?
𝗔𝗯ance is beautiful. Before I left, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I thought maybe it would be just a little sleepy village town up in the hills. But the place is almost like a food mecca. There's so many things growing around there and so many interesting traditions. We went to a place that grows blueberries, the 𝗔𝗯ance, we went to a hascap farm, which was quite interesting to know that I've had hascaps before, but I've never seen it on a commercial level, where they have fields of hascaps and make the jams and the jellies and that kind of thing. We ended up at the place of the chocolate monks. And if you know the name, you might have to pronounce it properly. The Monastère something.
It's the chocolaterie des Trappistes, des Pères Trappistes de Mistassini. There we go.
Congratulations. I wouldn't have got that.
I know. It's a long name. But yes, where they make the chocolate and the chocolate covered blueberries, which are like little pieces of heaven.
Yeah, it's great. It was crazy. And they started this like more than a century ago, and the monks would go there and they'd make the chocolate and they would sell it. So it's not quite done the same way anymore, but the cultural part of it is still quite interesting to see. It's basically on the edge of 𝗔𝗯ance, not quite, but pretty close. And it's just like you just walk around. There's the fromageries. It's unbelievable. If you want to go on a foodie getaway and you're somewhere close to Quebec, I would say go to 𝗔𝗯ance for sure. There's so much to see and do.
But so you went to 𝗔𝗯ance. You found somebody who makes 𝗔𝗯ance Tortier. What did you find out about 𝗔𝗯ance? About the Tortier, rather, from 𝗔𝗯ance?
That it's not your standard tortilla. It's like it's a meal and an event all on its own. So I met this lovely lady, Muriel Cachon. She's in her late 60s, I believe. She's partially First Nations. So originally the tortilla would be made with something like 7 ingredients. So originally it's made with bear and beaver and caribou and deer, Canadian geese, hare, and moose. So it's this mission of a meal.
It's really a hunter's kind of pie.
Yeah, for sure. You'd be a hunter-gatherer for sure. So she said that originally her great-grandparents lived in the woods and they would hunt the meats for it. And then in the wintertime, they'd make it up and they have like a big family feast. And then her parents would do the same thing, but on a little bit more calculated scale. So they would get the same meats, but they would actually have some sort of recipe to work off of that they were handed down to them. And then she took this handed down verbally recipe and then recreated it. So her husband had actually hunted the moose for the dish we ate. There wasn't all 7 meats in this particular one because I didn't give her a season's notice to go hunting, but I give her a bit of time. And so she prepared it, but it's 2 days of building the crust, and then you cook the meat and you reduce it down, and then it goes in the oven and it cooks down, and then this 15 pounds of meat and potatoes rolls out of the oven like a ship into the ocean. And then your guests show up and in goes a big spoon, and everyone gets these hunter-sized portions of food that you sit around and eat. It was interesting just to watch the whole thing unfold.
What did it taste like?
I would say it's like a very hearty and maybe savory dish. I wouldn't say that it's super flavorful. It's like meat and potatoes with chicken and beef stock in it. So it was a little bit salty and a little bit savory, but I wouldn't say it's like a glam meal. It's a very hearty and very basic, old school sort of menu.
Now, one of the fears you had was about language, as you mentioned. You don't speak much French. You had some translators with you for some of that trip. How did you get along in the province when you didn't have people to help you translate?
Yeah, so it's like I've traveled quite a bit of the planet, and the language part is always something you have to work with. It's just interesting being in your own country and having that problem, because usually it's maybe it'll be in Asia or Africa or something and don't know the language. But here people are like, well, this is your country. Shouldn't you know the languages? But I don't know both the languages. And so the people were quite helpful in terms of like they would know a few English words and pleasantries they could spit out, and I knew 3 French words I could get back to them, sort of thing. But between trying to look at something or understand something or enjoy a little part of the culture, it wasn't terribly difficult. The one thing I found was that a lot of people I met in the 𝗔𝗍𝘁 region didn't speak English at all. It wasn't even a thing. It wasn't, they're like, we don't know English. We learned some in high school, but we haven't had a reason to use it. Like there's nothing English around here. There's no point in my life to use English. And they're like, I wish I knew English. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I knew French. But in the end, everyone was there for the same reason, to have a good time. So we figured it out.
You had a very good time in Montreal. You wanted to explore Quebec's relationship with maple. Now, it is a particular relationship with maple. What did you find out about it?
Yes, it is a very love relationship with maple in that part of the planet. There's no getting to any sort of dining event without maple syrup somehow lingering on the table or in the foods. I wanted to explore the culture of maple syrup for sure. For a video I was shooting called Maple Madness, a little YouTube video. And from the outsider's perspective, the amount of maple syrup that ends up in things. When I'm there, people are like, oh, it's just a thing. We just have Gatorade bottles of maple syrup on the kitchen table. You put it in your coffee. And we're having braised beef with noodles. And so we just put the maple syrup on the beef afterwards. So there's some salty and sweet. Or you were having poutine. And of course, the very last ingredient on top is smothering with maple syrup. And I was like, this goes in every meal. I was at someone's house and they just opened the can and poured it into what looked like an espresso glass, like a 2-ounce glass. And we're chatting and they're just sipping it. I'm like, you're just drinking syrup right from the glass now? There's no barrier here to what it can go into or on. So I knew it was a thing. I knew maple syrup's a thing, but it's culturally ingrained in the blood of the people to another level I've never seen.
See, none of that is surprising to me. We can't even see it in Quebec. Like we go out there, like, why aren't you putting maple syrup in your coffee? It's delicious. It is. My producer is disagreeing with me, but I'm telling her, no, it is really good.
If someone locally watches the video, they'll just be like, yeah, that's how things work around here. Yeah. But if someone from the west,
like, are you guys crazy?
Yeah, it's from another understanding of sweetness.
But where did you have maple syrup on poutine?
So I ended up hooking up with this guy who you might know named Jay Turnbull, who works at CBC in Montreal. Great guy. So Jay is a reporter, and Jay is great at tracking down interesting stories. So he actually tracked me down 𝗔𝗯cie in the off season, which was good and bad.
In the off season.
Yeah, so it was summertime, so it was not the maple season, the sap season. So the upside was that we had their undivided attention, and there was not a lot else going on. The downside was we didn't get to see it in full chaos of maple madness and people eating it off the stick and it coming out of the trees and everything. But we ended up at 𝗔𝗯cie about an hour, 45 minutes from Montreal, and we met a lady there. And one of their specialties is they make maple poutine, with scrambled eggs on it, which again, I'm like, this is just so out of my context of what's going on here.
It's another, it's one of those poutine variations that they're out there.
It was amazing. So they made the fries like you expect. There'd be the squeaky cheese, but then they took a couple of eggs and scrambled them up and then cooked them in amber maple syrup at just the right temperature so it wouldn't turn into candy, but enough that would cook the egg, and whisked them in there and pulled it out. And me and Jay are looking at each other like, what's happening here? So it comes out and goes in the cup, and it looks awful because it's like this sort of slimy egg looking thing, but the taste is amazing. And then that goes on top of the poutine, and then some maple bacon, maple sausage, the cheese curd, the gravy on top. And my heart was looking at this dish and being like, please don't give that to us. Please, you want to live past 50, don't feed that to us. But it was delicious, like sweet and salty and cultural all in one bite.
So what recipes did you include from Quebec in the cookbook?
So Quebec, we did two. So one was I wanted to dabble in the maple side of things a little bit. So we ended up doing a maple pecan cheesecake. So it was candied pecans with maple syrup into a cheesecake with this little pansy garnish on top. It was quite cute and like a nice little sweet dish. And then the other one was the Tortier 𝗔𝗯cie 𝗂𝘁 𝗫𝗶𝘅. So I recreated the recipe that she had showed me. And then I also included how you can make it if you're going to make it authentically the way they do it with the 7 ingredients with the hare and the deer and the moose and bear and Canada goose and all the stuff that goes in it. So if you want to do those two. And so everything that's in the cookbook, some of it you could recreate on your own quite easily, but some of it is more for the story and the experience of how the rest of Canada does it, because you would have a tricky time maybe recreating that. But the maple pecan cheesecake, sure, that you could probably do that in your kitchen, no problem.
So when is the cookbook coming out, Kix, and what's it going to be called?
So the cookbook should be ready later this year. Actually, that'll be ready later last year, but it takes a long time to track all these people down, get their approval on what you wrote about them, and then turn their life into a video and make sure they're happy with it. That took literally twice as long as I was anticipating it taking, but that's the way my life goes.
Can't wait to see it and to try the Tortier recipe. Who knows? Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day and have a great adventure for the next time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, CBC, for jumping in and putting the country together once again.
You can see Kix Marshall's videos on YouTube. That's Kix spelled K-I-X. And the cookbook is coming out later this year. Your texts are hilarious, by the way. One texter says, sorry, but who is this foreigner? And another texter says, that amount of maple is totally normal. I don't understand why people don't get it.